The Hercules dust extractor, probably the best Harbor Freight tool that come out in 2024 in my opinion. Now this thing is awesome, but it has a couple of drawbacks that some people pointed out in that review, but I still think it's one of the best budget dust extractors on the market. First, why would you even want a dust extractor versus just a regular shop vac that costs much less in basically any brand? First and foremost is you have volume control on the dust extractor that you don't have on shop vacs. And what that means is it allows you to dial up or down the suction depending on the tool you're going to use. So if you're sanding, you want to actually dial it down a little bit so it's not pulling as much of suction through the hose, which actually sucks the sander down to the surface, causing those little swirl marks that you see when you put the finish on. When you dial this back, it's still pulling air through the sander, pulling out that dust, extracting the dust, but it's not pulling so hard that it's sticking to the surface. That's one of the main purposes behind a dust extractor. Or you can turn it up to full blast, getting as much suction as possible to get as much dust collection as possible when you use tools like track saws and routers, among other things. Another thing dust extractors offers that most shop vacs do not is automatic filter cleaning, and this has it built in as well. I think it's a fantastic feature on this dust extractor, especially at this price point. Basically what it's doing is rerouting the airflow a little bit so that it cleans those filters, but you don't notice any difference in your suction. So it's just a brief thing that cleans those filters, keeps them operating at full capacity. Because if you don't know, if you stop those filters up, you lose a ton of suction. And included with this dust extractor is a bag to help prevent those filters from getting stopped up as often or as much because this bag actually collects most of the dust. I was going to say 99%, but I don't know the actual figure, but it does collect the majority of the dust, so those filters do stay very clean. If you'd like to check out any of these tools, I'll link them in the description and the pinned comment to help you find them easier. This video is not sponsored. I bought all these. Another fantastic feature of this dust extractor is the fact that it has onboard power, so you can plug the dust extractor in. It's got a very long cord on it, and then you plug your tool into the dust extractor. And where that comes in handy is if you're using a sander or any other corded tool, when you power the tool on, it powers the dust extractor on, so you don't have to do that separately. It's a nice convenience. You can also just use the switch to turn it on and off if you don't want to plug it in there. A couple of things that impressed me with the Hercules dust extractor is the fact it has these nice big wheels to roll around. That might not seem like a big deal, but on the DeWalt dust extractor that I had for years, it had very small wheels and it was always getting hung up on cords and things like that. Having these bigger tires, basically kind of outdoor ready tires, but in the shop, it just rolls over things a lot better. They also included some really cool things here, like onboard storage for your attachments, and that's where kind of this shines too, because not all dust extractors, or most actually, don't come with these floor cleaning attachments, which is handy for helping clean up around the shop, extra dust that hits the floor, stuff like that. I'm glad they included that, and there's several different attachments that they actually included here, which most people don't. So I'm proud to see that, especially because they're keeping the price lower on this dust extractor. Also included a nice extendable handle, a place to roll your cord up, just a really good option for a dust extractor here if you're in the market. Now while I was using this and testing it back in 2024, I found this thing to perform fantastic. Like, you can't see no performance difference in this versus the Festool, which is way more expensive at about $800 versus this one, which is only at $300. I think it's a fantastic value if you need a dust extractor, but there is a couple of drawbacks here that some people pointed out in that original review. The main drawback that a lot of people pointed out is this power up front, which is only at 3.5 amps. Now, if you think about that, a lot of your routers and things like that are at 12 amps. So it's not recommended that you plug in here if it's over 3.5 amps. So you're thinking sanders mostly is what should be plugged in here. But why is that? Why is it only 3.5 amps? Well, this tool is actually a 15 amp tool. And if you look on the back, it says that the motor on this dust extractor is 11.5 amps, which leaves you 3.5 amps to get to 15. That's where they're giving up some of the power draw going to the motor. In other words, how much suction you get versus what's on the front. Now, there's a couple of ways to bypass that. Well, one really, and that is to plug the tool in somewhere else, and then you just won't have that auto on. But that is a drawback that some people pointed out. Could be a deal breaker for some. I don't think so. Another drawback could be the warranty. Now, this only has a 90-day warranty, and a lot of people in the original review pointed out that you could actually buy an extended warranty at Harbor Freight for not a lot of money. And then a lot of people also pointed out that they didn't like the 90-day warranty, but I don't think it's a major issue. If you decide you wanted one, you could also pick up the extra warranty, especially if you catch this on sale.